Hey, it's Kerry. Today we're talking about the fourth project that we've recommended for the CDD implementation roadmap. The first project was policy scope. The second project was, defining a risk-based approach. The third project is customer risk profile. You should be able to access the content that we have put in each of those with the embedded links. So we've got research, we've got videos, we've got project plans that are coming out. So today we're talking about record keeping. Okay? Now, for some of you who've heard me speak, I've talked about the first SAS 70 audit that I went on. I worked at Arthur Andersen, and we did a SAS 70 audit for South Trust, for the trust department. And you know what? It wasn't that complicated work. The trust department had a fiduciary responsibility, and in order to meet that fiduciary responsibility, they put in certain policies, procedures, and processes to make sure that they captured the information to show that they complied with that fiduciary responsibility. As auditors, we went in a SAS 70 audit, and we went in and we checked files to make sure that South Trust had in fact complied with what they said they were going to do. Okay, not that much different in the grand scheme of things with what a regulator would do in a BSA audit, or what if your internal audit. Are you doing what you say you are supposed to be doing? Now, there are a lot of complexities around BSA AML, but if you simplify the concept down to record keeping and retention, what is the purpose of what we're trying to capture? What are we capturing it? So for the CDD rule, what I want you to think about is obviously you're going to set, based on your policies and the procedures, the information that you actually capture, okay? You're going to set into motion the steps to gather that information. So the question here is, how are you going to ensure that the information that you gather is gathered consistently? That's step number one. And then from an IT standpoint, from an information sharing standpoint, how are you going to keep that information in a shared database, in a shared resource that will house this, so that frontline employees can gather the information. They can work with BSA analysts. They can work with BSA operations, so that the information that you've gathered has context for your customers when you start to look at their activity through transaction monitoring, wire activity, cash reporting. So the most important thing is to identify, is to get consistency in record keeping, and make sure that you're working with someone in your IT department to make sure that information can be shared. So hopefully this is helpful. It's a pretty basic concept what we're trying to get across here. There are certain things that you want to clarify: what you want to capture, record keeping, how you're going to capture it, and then how you're going to access that information, so that you don't have to ask your customer for information over and over again. It would be helpful if you could access some of this information that already exists within your bank. If it's an existing customer, I've said this before, if they have a mortgage, if they have an auto loan, if they use other products and services, and BSA does not have access to that information, that's probably where you want to go first, so that before you ask the customer for information. So hopefully this is helpful. Next week we have determining additional information that captured. So I'll go into that next week. We're going to be talking about determining the information, the additional information. What are the questions you ask? Since there is no central registry, how are you going to get comfortable with mitigating factors that you need to put in place? What should you do to ask the questions? What questions are going to get you comfortable? Well, obviously this is going to go all the way back to your risk-based approach, based on the risk that you've identified. Okay, If you have customers that you've deemed higher risk, you're going to have more mitigating factors. You're going to have more questions that you need to ask. Those that are not, businesses that are not that complex, that you've deemed as low risk, not that many questions to ask. So we'll get into that next week. Hopefully this is helpful. Continue to look for videos, research, and project plans. Keep checking back to the implementation roadmap. We're going to keep feeding information and keep adding value to you. Thanks for watching. See you next week.